Chris Myers here, Orlando Fly Casting Lessons. Do you have enough line speed in your fly casting? Today we're going to talk about what is line speed, why do we need it, and how you can generate more line speed for more effective casting. Welcome to the channel. I'm Chris Myers. I'm a fly casting instructor right here in Central Florida. You can come see me for one-on-one personal fly casting lessons, or if you don't have an instructor near you, I can also analyze your cast on video. So one of the most important things we're fishing big water, if we need accuracy and distance in windy conditions, is having enough line speed. And there are a couple different ways we can generate that line speed. So today I'm going to explain and demonstrate how you can make those casts. So if you're not a subscriber to this channel, please click the subscribe button. And if you have any questions at the end of this video on how this works, please leave me a comment below. Fly fishing line speed, the term is pretty self-explanatory, but how we achieve it can be a little complicated and challenging for some people. First, let's talk about why we would need it. If I'm fishing in this little pond, creek here with a small rod, I want to make a nice delicate presentation. So I really don't need a ton of line speed. I don't want stuff hitting the water super fast and hard, spooking fish. So line speed's not going to be so much of a factor. If you're on big water, having to cast longer distances, the faster you have that line moving, the easier it is for that line to straighten out before gravity takes over and starts pulling it down towards the ground. And the more line speed we can achieve, the easier it is for our line to penetrate the wind. Now, we could have all the line speed in the world. If we don't have a relatively well-formed loop, it doesn't matter what our line looks like. So if I have no loop at all, I can do this thing super fast and it's really not going to go anywhere. So very first and foremost, if your loops are not well formed, please check out some of my other casting videos on how you can create those loops, and then we can start working on line speed. So there are two ways we can achieve this line speed, and the first is by moving our casting hand back and forth faster. And we can also increase the speed at which I flick my wrist. So at the end of each stroke, I have a little wrist flick, but if I click it faster, I'm going to get much higher line speed. When you are creating your additional line speed using your casting hand, it's very easy to start overstepping and getting into tailing loop territory where your rod is bending so much that the tip of that rod is no longer following a straight line. It's bending below the straight line from too much bend over the distance that you're casting. The tip goes below the straight line, so will the fly, and you could end up with a tangle or at least some knots in the end of your leader. So it's very easy to overstep that, and most of those tailing loops are caused by instant acceleration, going super fast, using way too short of a stroke, and going really fast and ending up with that big tangle like I just created there. So as you're doing this, one clue to tell you if you're using the right technique should be right here on the side of your head. And I want you to watch as I go from slow, and I'll just do it one-handed here. So slow as I can go, slow, slow. I'm going to start speeding up. And I want you to start listening for the rod. So the line is going considerably faster at the end there, but what you did not hear is a big whoosh of that rod all the way through the stroke. When I'm trying to add extra speed, I'm doing it with that wrist as I rotate the rod from one angle to the other. So at the end of my strokes, there is a flick where I'm changing directions, pull, 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 flip. If I use full speed from the very get-go, you'll hear this. You see these loops are not really formed at all. There wasn't any loop in that. So if you hear that big whooshing going back and forth, the first thing you want to start looking to adjust is where are you adding that speed. We want to be adding that speed with our wrist at the end of the stroke. If I'm going to start bending the rod more, if I'm doing it harder and faster, it's going to be pulling harder on the tip of this rod. It bends the rod more. I cannot use the same little short stroke. So here's my stroke I was using for the slowest cast I can make. So I'm going from about there to about here. If I start doing it faster and I keep that same stroke, now I'm getting tangles, so I'm going to have to widen my arc, make the straight line across the top, the little track that your tip is going to go back and forth in, make that longer if you're going to be bending your rod more, because my rod is only going to be bending a little bit for a little soft cast. As I pull harder, my rod's going to be bending more and needs a much longer line to keep along the straight. The second way we can add line speed is by introducing hauling, which is pulling on the line with our non-casting hand until you have well-formed loops, and you can increase the speed using your wrist. Trying to do it all with hauling is trying to put a band-aid on a huge open gash that needs stitches. We got to fix this hand first. Trying to add hauling on top of poor casting hand technique usually just causes additional problems and introduces more slack in there. But once we can do that, at the same moment I'm making that little wrist flip with at the end of my stroke. So as I'm changing from here, 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 that's when I'm going to start doing my haul. I'm going to put those things together. So I'm going to go pull, 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 pull. The longer I haul that, the more speed that I can generate. So for a little short cast, if I just wanted to get it going faster here, I only need a little short haul. It's a down, up, down, up, down, up. And that can shoot out additional line even if there's no wind. So it's something we don't only use if there's wind or if we have to get super far. We can use that to minimize our number of false casts, feed line out quicker. If we're feeding line out each stroke, if we're using a haul, I can shoot much more line out on a false cast than if I'm not using a haul. And if we want to generate even more speed and make bigger casts, heavy winds, we can introduce hauls that are much longer. So when that wind really starts blowing on those open flats, maybe this little haul that was working great when it was calm needs to become a much longer haul. But it's very important that we time that haul correctly, and we are not doing the haul at the beginning of the stroke. So if I start my haul here at the beginning of the stroke, see how my loops aren't well formed? I just hit myself with it doing that. It has to be a properly timed haul in order for it to be effective. So we put both of those things together, we can go from a very short piece of line, get in there, one haul, two haul, three haul. We can have 50 feet of fly line at the tip, plus the rod, plus the leader. You can be 60, 70 feet away with two backstrokes when you're using higher line speed, and if you're introducing a haul in with that. So those are reasons why we'd want to use higher line speed. If you're having a problem getting your loops to be narrow and accurate, please check out my fly casting playlist for some additional tips.